And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another footy insight chat. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's the off season. We got to keep footy alive, and I'm taking just the tiniest break from my supporter series because I have a fantastic guest coming on the show today because, as I told you guys, I wanted to talk with more females in footy. I want to see their impact on footy, what their footy journey is, and everything like that. And surprisingly, on Instagram, I found a fantastic chat, and thankfully, she has hopped on. We have Tiffany Ferguson Blight hopping on today, and I'm gonna kind of go over some of the things that this young lady does, and it's insane. She's a development coach. She has just recently taken the Rogers Cup position with the Perth Footy Club out in the Waffle W. So an accomplishment, and I cannot wait to have a chat. We were sitting here for 20 minutes just talking footy off mic, so I had to get the mic on and talk with her. So Tiffany, thank you for hopping on the podcast and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, before we talk the footy, I know this is a footy podcast. I like finding out just the littlest bit about the person. So, if you don't mind, could you tell us just the littlest bit about yourself outside of the game of football?
Sure. Sometimes it's hard to remember that there's a person outside of football for me.
You're not the
Um,
first person to say that.
it's definitely become a massive part of my life. But I am currently a mum of two, so I'm other than football, I'm a stay-at-home mum with them. So I have two girls, Olympia and Oakland. They are Ollie just turned 4, so she starts kindy next week, and Oakland's nearly 2. So yeah, that's been a bit of a whirlwind last few years. Um, o- Other than that, I have 2 university degrees. So I did a performing arts degree at Whopper. And then I've also done a law degree. And I use neither of them, neither of them to earn an income because why not?
Uh,
But yeah, I guess I just have um, a massive love of learning, which has landed me working in sport, because I was also really passionate about that growing up, and it kind of steamrolled, and the two just kind of morphed together, and here we are.
it sounds fantastic. Educated mom, footy fan, absolutely love it. So let's hop into it. As we said, we are here to talk football. So let's bring up football. What is your favorite thing about this wonderful sport of Aussie rules football?
Oh, this is going to sound so funny. So growing up, I actually hated football, which is probably not the thing you wanted to hear or thought you'd hear today. But I like hated the sport completely. Wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Didn't know how to kick a football, hold a football. Didn't even know the rules. Like it took me till I was probably 13 or 14 to work out that a goal was worth 6 points, and I still don't know why, but that's okay. But yeah, it was a sport that just didn't have space for women, I
Mhm.
think, in hindsight. And like you'd watch it and there was no, other than supporters, there was no women, there was no female umpires, there was no female coaches, there was no female players when I was growing up. So it was a really isolating experience if you were a woman in football at that point. So but back to your question, what I love about football is what happened when I did start. So I met my now husband, and I was a basketballer. I'd sort of left the sport a little bit, come back to it, and found I couldn't sort of break back into the level of basketball that I wanted to play. And his dad jokingly, one day at one of his games, waffle games, jokingly said, you should give this a crack, haha. And I took it upon myself to get a bit offended about that, and decided to actually prove him wrong. And what I discovered was that female football, because it was such an isolating place initially, was actually the most wonderful community. The people I met through my first few seasons in football are still some of the most wonderful, special people in my life. And we may not have contact all the time anymore because I don't see them 3 times, 4 times a week. But yeah, I learned so much from them, and I have them to thank for so much. They got me through some really tough times, and yeah, as I said, for me, the personal growth and development, the community that I found in a space that previously I'd believed it just was entirely closed off to me, is the number one reason that I am still so heavily involved in football, because if I can give that to one other person, then, I think that's such an achievement.
The footy road to redemption. Absolutely. I love it. I absolutely. So, which actually makes my next question kind of funny, but I'm interested on this. As you said, you hated football. So, what's your earliest footballing memory?
Um, my first memory when I saw you mentioned this one, it actually got me a little stumped, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I remember anything about football until I was like 12 or 13.
Hmm.
Must have been over 13 because it's in the house that we moved into after I was that old. So but I remember watching an Eagles game on TV. It must have been a final, because otherwise it wouldn't have been on our family TV because no one liked the game. Um, and I remember watching it and genuinely trying to add up the score as it was happening. And I was like, why is that 6 points and that's 1 point? And just trying to figure out the rules.
Hmm.
And as I said, that was like I was over 13 years old. And Americans probably won't appreciate this as much, but I guess with your own football, like it's so ingrained into our culture that for someone of that age to not know the rules
Hmm.
was like blasphemy. Um, it was pretty bad. And now when I reflect on it, I'm like, I don't know how it took me that long to
Hmm.
work it out. But yeah, that's my first football memory, is like bad one.
It's fine. I will never have a problem with it. I will. The thing I find even more interesting is that I think it'd be a little less devastating if you were in Queensland or New South Wales. But the fact
Yeah.
that you're in a footy heartland in WA, then I kind of understand. Again, I mean that as no diss, but it is one of those where it's like you're constantly hearing the footy media go like the heartlands of WA and SA and Victoria. That makes, I mean, so being in like New South Wales and Queensland, it would make sense that maybe get to 13 and not know the rules. 100% because you're an NRL country. But the fact that you're in Perth and WA is it almost makes the story even better. So no,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely love
Oh,
it.
wait, I know nothing about rugby or cricket either. So, like, let's just be very clear. All of the Australian sports, not my thing
That's
until I
fine.
got much older. So
It
yeah,
is.
that's not even a redemption for me because I don't even know those ones.
It's fine. Hey, we're a footy podcast. So I will openly say that I cheer for Australia in the Ashes, and I'm slowly getting into more cricket because baseball over here has just become absolutely not watchable. So the T20 cricket was fantastic. So especially when it comes to it, I was enjoying the finals. I thought there were some magnificent cricket being played there. So again, I find a way to slip cricket in. I don't know why. Stop, coach. Just stop. So let's rewind. Let's get into the footy. And I'm excited for this because as we were kind of talking off mic and I was getting a little bit of the history of this young woman and her, as she said, now it's even more interesting the fact that she hated football. So let's go to it. Talk to me about your footy journey because you said at 13 years old, you're trying to figure it out. I mean, what were your footy experiences once you finally started playing?
Yeah, so as I said, I didn't pick up a football until I was 21.
Mhm.
Um, so it had nothing to do with football until I met the man I'm now married to. And he played for Swan Districts in the Waffle when we met. Um, Secretly it was a really good catch, it turns out, and I had no idea at the time. But yeah, so he sort of introduced me to it, and as it goes, trying to be the supportive girlfriend I was, that I went to all the games and I sat dutifully in the stands, and his parents are massive footy heads. Like dad coached, mum managed his whole life, would still do after games, sometimes call him on the way home to like debrief the game. So I was sitting with people who understood what was happening in front of me. So I learned very quickly, because they're very vocal as well, which I
Hmm.
love them to bits. But his mum's very, like me, quite vocal. So I learned really quickly, which was fantastic. But yeah, after a couple of years of that, his dad, as I said, made a bit of a joking comment. We were watching his game. It had finished and the girls were playing after, or the women, I should say, were playing after.
Hmm.
And a woman got injured. I remember this vividly and was stretchered off the field. And that's when his dad sort of said, "Oh, you should try this, haha." I was not known for being very physical. Like,
Hmm.
basketball was a highly physical sport to me, um, which at the time I was like really proud of that. I had broken 13 bones in my life. I had a whole, um, yeah, injury, like a list of injuries as long as my arm. And
Hmm.
so that was a bit of a joke. And I thought, couldn't I? Like, surely I can do it if he can do it.
Hmm.
And so that year, I saw Swans were put a bit of a call out. This was back in the WAWFL days, and they would sort of do like open trainings towards the end of the year before the Christmas break in the preseason. Um, just to get people down. They're like, it doesn't matter your experience, you can be brand new to the sport. We just want as many people here as we can, and everyone's welcome. So I went down, had a crack. As you can expect, the first session involved our time trials. I love running. So I was like, this is for me. I love
Hmm.
it. It's amazing. And so I just stuck with it and yeah, learned really quickly how difficult it is as a sport from a skill perspective. There's not, other than Gaelic, there's not really another sport that's directly transferable skill-wise.
Hmm.
Um, so I had to learn from scratch as an adult how to hold a football, how to kick, how to run. As I said, I played basketball, so like catching, I was okay at, like
Hmm.
marking, handballing, I picked up pretty quickly with both hands because I was I'd trained that sort of
Yeah.
motion. But kicking took me so long. I'm still learning to kick.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that was, oh, I want to say the end of 2016. It was like November 2016. I played 2017 with Swan Districts, and we were lucky enough. Well, we worked hard enough that year that we won the Rogers, the reserves, and the league in the same year. So you just clean sweep the comp. It was a whirlwind experience, such an incredible year for my rookie year. And I was so proud of that. I got to play in the grand final. So won a premiership in my first season. It was couldn't have gone any better.
Hmm.
And then I actually came to the US in October of that year on an AFL tour. I think it was called Aussie Sparks, where they sort of got women from around the country, put us in a group, and we went over to California for the USA Nationals and played some exhibition games and did a bit of a training camp, which was really cool. Got to meet some really incredible people through that. I was lucky that it was actually my Swan District's coach, Nicole Graves, who coached that, and Cara Donnellan, or you might know her as Juddy from Fremantle, was helping coach that as well, and in that program. So it was really cool first 12 months in the sport.
Hmm.
And I was just like sold. I'm
Mm.
in. I've loved every second of this. You're gonna have to pry me away with a crowbar. Um, and yeah, so from there, my playing career unfortunately only lasted 2.5 seasons. So my second season, I was vice captain of the reserve side. I worked really, really hard. I think it was that year that I debuted in the league side. But as I said to you before, I only played one game, kicked my first and only ever goal in that league game. So that was pretty exciting. But what I'd noticed, yeah, I'd been noticing it for quite a while at that point. I had some hip pain. It was progressively getting worse. And then in my third season, which was I only got about half the season, I noticed that there was times I couldn't get up from being tackled because the pain was getting so severe. And I had hip, what do they call it? Hip preservation surgery in Jan
Hmm.
2020, trying to clean up my joint because I had developed osteoarthritis. And basically have never been able to return. So I now need a hip replacement at 30. Not, I will say, not because of AFL. It was a pre-existing
Hmm.
thing. I think potentially was a birth defect that was missed. But yeah, I can't. If I am tackled too heavily, I won't be able to just sort of get up and walk it off.
Hmm.
Um, I can't change directions without pain. So playing the sport became impossible, which was a bit of a tricky one to navigate. Yeah, that's kind of how I landed where I am.
Well, here's the thing though. You had some success, you enjoyed it, and the best part is that with the ability to go into coaching now, it's not like you just have to give it up. As much as it sucks, but I kind of want to rewind just the tiniest bit because as you said, 21, so you didn't have the juniors experience. So I'm going to go to it as how did Swan Districts get a hold of you? Like, was it one of those that they just gave you a call and said, "Hey, we liked what we saw." Like, how did that kind of go? Because as you said, it was an open tryout. I mean, were you the only one that got on? Like, I'd be fascinated as how many from that tryout ended up making the squad.
Pretty much all of us.
Okay.
So this, when I say that footy was pretty fresh for women in that year, like
We're
very
like we're
fresh.
like 1 year pre to the AFLW and the
So it was the
explosion in the country. So I can 100% understand that.
so it was the summer of the first AFLW. So it
Gotcha. Okay.
was very, very new. So there was a lot of faces that came down that probably hadn't been at trainings and stuff before. But women in football were few and far between still.
Hmm.
So if you came down and you could sort of learn the skills, like you didn't have to have them, but if there was potential that you would learn them and you were relatively fit or strong, you were probably going to get a gig.
Okay.
And if you couldn't, then you were probably kept on. So we had numbers at training and then we could
Yep.
work it out around that. So
Hmm.
no one was really turned away at that point. I liken it now to sort of what it would be like at a community club or a PFL club.
Yep.
Where it was everyone's welcome, please, like, and it was just chucked on Facebook, to be honest. They didn't get a hold of me personally. It was just free for all. I saw one of the girls I had known from, I grew up in Bunbury. So one of the girls I knew from Bunbury played at Swan Districts and I'd seen her post about it and I thought, oh, I'll just go have a crack. And yeah, then I was like the barnacle that just never left.
Hmm.
They didn't get a choice. I was staying and I was obsessed. So yeah, it was kind of like that. And then I think the way it worked out was throughout the season, obviously, when it comes to selections and if in the weeks that we were had the luxury of selections around, FIFO players, injuries, other life commitments, in the weeks that you had the luxury of selections, then you sort of worked out where you sat. And I think
Hmm.
the big one for me was the grand final. Like that was the game where the most, everyone makes themselves available for that, don't they? So
Hmm.
um, getting to actually play in that grand final sort of gave me that sense that like I actually have earned a spot here. I'm not getting this because they don't
Hmm.
have anyone else to play. Like I've earned a spot in this team and on the field this week, and that's really exciting. And I can sort of make a go of this. Like they actually maybe want me here, and I'm not just sort of hanging around and
Hmm.
doing this for me anymore. Like there's more to this,
Yep.
which was really cool.
Awesome. Awesome. And then I gotta ask this as you said, you were there pre Waffle W days. I mean, it's been rebranded again, really as the league changed, not that much. Mostly it's the same clubs. But can you explain to me just a little bit about the differences that you've seen because you were there in the early days, as you said, as you hopped on, and now look at what the Waffle W is currently.
Yeah, I think to be honest, most of the changes we've seen probably aren't to do with the change in the like the league and the program
Hmm.
itself. There is some in that like back in those days there was no Subiaco women's football club, or they were Coastal Titans. We might have been called Swan Districts, but we were a separate. Most women's clubs were a separate entity to the men's clubs.
Hmm.
Um, and then as the Waffle W sort of was like, as you said, rebranded and became its own league that aligned with the waffle, the expectation. And what's happened is that all of those women's clubs were absorbed into the men's clubs. And that in some cases has worked really well and has been a really really beneficial arrangement between both. And then for other clubs, that's still creating turmoil and difficulties left, right, and center. So
Mhm.
still some teething issues there. But I think from a playing perspective and what we're actually seeing on field, the differences have less to do with that stuff and more to do with the fact that the girls we're seeing now have been playing since Auskick.
Mhm.
They're not, there's still some women who have started like I did and have cross-coders are still
Mhm.
really common. But most of the really talented athletes we're seeing now have been playing the sport at some point through their junior career and have grown up with a footy in hand. So like a Zippy Fish is a really
Mhm.
good example of that. From my experience, like I'm thinking of like Michaela and her twin Brianna Hyde
Mhm.
were exceptional footballers, and they had played through the Tara Stribley,
Mhm.
Mickey Bowen, all these players that, and I know there are so many from other clubs. I'm just thinking one-minded about Swans because that's where I was when these
Mhm.
girls were like 13, 14-year-old kids. Um, and the talent they had then, and then watching them just sort of exponentially explode. And we're seeing that even on like on a larger scale now, because the girls we're working with now in like my Rogers Cup program have literally have grown up seeing women
Playing
play
footy.
this sport, and they themselves have grown up playing this sport rather
Mhm.
than coming into it and
Exactly.
trying to learn it as an adult. Um, so yeah,
They
yeah,
don't have that, they don't have that luxury. No, it's there's nothing wrong with it. I actually love the cross coders. I have a few connections with one of the Irish recruiters who actually brings over many of the Gaelic players.
yeah,
And even that I even say is it's fantastic for the league. I mean, I know it really hasn't caught on as much as the men. There's the sprinkle, but if you look at the Gaelic just infusion in the AFLW, I say, and I agree with this, a Ireland versus Australia match, footy match, I think would be incredible because you can put together quite a fantastic Irish team and you can put together a fantastic Australian team. And I think legitimately it's going to be competitive. The only area that I think the Australians have a huge advantage is inside midfields because if you really look at it, after Aisling McCarthy, really, there aren't many really good, solid inside midfielders in the league. They're mostly wingers, halfback flankers, forwards, full forwards, forward pockets. Really, they don't have that other two or three fantastic inside mids. They have a couple that can go through, but they're a little bit slighter of build, and I'm not
yeah.
sure. I mean, you got the rucks, so I think it'd be a fantastic game. I joke with Michael Curran. I said we could put together quite a good team of just the AFLW Irish contingent, and I think it'd be a competitive game. I legitimately think it would be a fantastic game on that. So before we go to the coaching, because I really want to talk coaching, because as a person, I've coached footy. I love coaching. I think coaching this sport is so much fun because there are so many aspects to it. I want you to have I want to have a really good moment. Tell me your most memorable moment as a player.
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, my most you know what? My most memorable moment as a player, probably my first game ever. Um, and it's actually caught on camera, which is so embarrassing to think back on. But in my first game, I played inside mid, which I never
Hmm.
did again. I was put there because I could run all day, and I would just do what I was told.
Hmm.
Um, but I was not an inside midfielder because I don't like being tackled. But I remember getting down to try and pick up a ball. I went to ground really easily because it was my first game,
Hmm.
and I had an East Fremantle player physically sit on my head. And I actually, that happened a couple of times in that season. I remember then playing Peel a couple of weeks later and having a Peel girl. I bent over to pick up a ball and she picked me up and just tossed me aside. And it was kind of then that I went, I think I need to get a lot stronger if I'm going to play because like
Hmm.
I'm still pretty slightly like I'm of a slighter build now. But I when I started, I was 173 centimeters and 55 kilos. That was at my heaviest in my
Hmm.
first season. I was a little little player. Didn't like physicality, didn't like contact. I had to really, really hone in on that. But I those moments just stand out to me now that there's no way anyone would do that to me now. I would never let that happen. But when you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Hmm. Yeah,
I
you don't want
remember
it to, you don't
around
want
like a
it,
rag.
you don't want to happen now or you go aggro. So nah,
No,
it's not,
not me.
I absolutely love it. Sometimes that's one of my favorite questions when I ask footy fans is the most memorable moment because it's not always an obvious. Like you would think winning a premiership, getting to hold that premiership cup, stuff like that. Sometimes the most memorable moments are not that. It's a moment that will just never leave your head. So I absolutely, so thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate that because again, it could have been easy. You could have just said, "Hey, winning a premiership in my first season." I mean, how is that not? But no, I absolutely love it. So as we said, let's transition, and I will ask this, as you said, injury unfortunately is one of the main reasons why you decided to hang up the boots when it comes to playing.
Hmm.
So I mean, was it difficult? Because I know the pain, like take the pain away for just a second personally. If you could have gotten your body right, if the hip thing wouldn't have happened, would you have continued playing? Or do you think that it's kind of like the perfect transition to your coaching career?
I would be lying too if I said I wouldn't still be playing.
Right?
Would I not be coaching? Like, I'd probably still be coaching. I'd probably just be juggling the two, to be honest, which
Hmm.
my family are probably very grateful that I can't play because I already spend, 4 or 5 nights a week at football. We don't need that to be like seven.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was very difficult. It still is. Like I met with my surgeon last week, who's just informed me that I probably need a replacement now. Um, and we're gonna try and buy me some time because I don't really want that just yet. But yeah, I came home and like this is 6 years after the first surgery, the first time I found this out, and I cried for like 3 hours after hearing that. Like it's still
Hmm.
so raw and it's so difficult. Um, I think also the nature of my injury was, obviously it being career ending from a playing perspective, and I would never have played in the AFLW.
Hmm.
First one to put my hand up and say that was never on the cards for me. Waffle W probably wasn't on the cards for me, but um, just not like I never reached 50 games. I never
Hmm.
got to have these like milestone moments for myself, which would have been really nice and something that I kind of grieve a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's a really difficult thing. But as you said, it's been a really cool transition for me, and while I'm disappointed and heartbroken, I'm also really grateful
Hmm.
because the timing of that obviously has then meant that all of these other things have happened and fallen my way. And the opportunities that I've had, if that had happened right now, probably would have looked very different. Like I
Hmm.
don't think I would have gotten, well, I wouldn't have gotten to head coach a team in my first year coaching. I wouldn't have gotten to coach a league side in my second year to a grand final. I wouldn't have coached state 18s within 4 years of starting. Like there's been this just snowball effect, just from the timing.
Hmm.
So yeah, super heartbreaking, but also very grateful. And while I would still play if I could, um, yeah, I think it's probably for the best that I don't.
In the long run, it led you to a very good path, and you're still in the sport. You're still giving knowledge. You're still helping with the youngsters. So no, I agree with you. It sucks. I went through the same thing, had a back injury myself, and it was the same thing. It's the hardest decision to step away. But
Mm.
knowing that you have that ability to coach now, I think is fantastic. So we'll go into the coaching mode now. So I mean, tell me what was that first? Who got you into it? How did it start? Kind of walk me through how you went from Devo that you can't play anymore because of the hip injury to grabbing the clipboard, stepping on the sidelines, and becoming a coach?
Yeah, so obviously I had that surgery in Jan 2020. Um, and I sort of booked that in like October. So, as you have to. So that was all booked in, and I knew I wouldn't be playing the next year because it was at least a 12-month recovery. So it was
Hmm.
6 weeks on crutches, another 6 weeks partial load bearing, so still on crutches, but
Hmm.
load bearing, and then it was another 12 weeks after that of learning to walk again. So, that's 6 months of the year just learning to walk, let
Hmm.
alone run, do anything else. So I in my head was sort of parking that year, and I went, my husband was playing PFL by then. He was being paid to coach the reserves, and he was playing league up at Kalamunda. And one of our really good family friends was the president there, and they were starting a women's team. And they were talking about the coaching opportunity, and they were saying they were going to advertise for a coach. And I sort of said, "Oh, I could probably have a crack at that. Like, I know a bit, and I've been around it a bit, even pre-playing myself. Like I think I said before, I learned so much as a wag.
Hmm.
And even now, like, I watch football. I don't watch as much AFL as I should, but I watch a lot of footy,
Hmm.
because I watch all of Ben's games. I obviously watch all my games. I watch all the other Waffle games. So we watch a lot of footy, and I analyze the absolute life out of everything I watch. I'm not someone who watches something for entertainment. I will sit there and pick it apart moment by moment, and I have from the day I started watching his footy. So
Hmm.
I had a sort of 5 or 6 years under my belt of pulling the game apart and understanding it. And I thought, well, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm sure there's far more experienced coaches that are going to put their hand up, or, there's so many old guys around the club, they'll pick one of them.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, they offered me the role, which was the most difficult role I've ever done, to this day. And I think it will forever be the most difficult role I've ever done. Obviously, that was our COVID year. So
Hmm.
we played 6 games, and they were the most high pressure 6 games I've ever coached. We had the most difficult personalities I've ever dealt with, and the least support I've ever had. So, and that's the nature of PFL, right? Like, you don't get the same support as in a waffle system,
Hmm.
for better and for worse. So that's what we dealt with. And yeah, so that was kind of how I landed in coaching to start with. I thought I'll just fill this year with this. And then it was done, and I was so thankful to be done with that season. I loved so many of those girls, and I still have contact with a lot of them because my husband's still at Kalamunda. So I still see a lot of those girls, but I was very much like, I don't ever want to do that again. That was
Hmm.
a mistake. Um, went back to Swans thinking I'll play. I'll come back from this injury and I'll play. And I did 2 weeks of training before we realized that just was not going to happen. I couldn't turn around. I couldn't pick up a ground ball and change direction. I got tackled at training and I couldn't get up. And I thought, yeah, no, this is not going to happen. And so the head coach was new that year, Adam Dancy, and he sort of pulled me aside, and you said before it's such a difficult decision. It actually really wasn't for me because I didn't make the decision. Adam basically sort of said, look, we can both see you're not probably going to get up this season. And I sort of said, yeah, I can recognize that. And he said, would you consider coaching? Because I think you've got a bit of a knack for that. And he'd only known me for a couple of weeks at that point, which was, yeah, I thought that was a really lovely thing for him to say,
Hmm.
having not known me long, but asked me to consider that. And I said, yeah, sure, but I'll coach reserves because I don't feel confident and comfortable coaching in the league side. Most of those girls taught me how to play. I couldn't coach them.
Yep.
That was all well and good until one of the league coaches had a family emergency and had to step out. And then suddenly I was in there, coaching the back line, which was the most experienced line. And I was coaching ex-AFL players and, 200 gamers. Um, yeah, so it was a bit of a just sort of plops from there to there, and sink or swim. But yeah, as I said, those I owe so much of my coaching career to that back line. And I'm the first person to say that. I think there was about six or seven real regulars through that line, and they pretty well coached themselves for most of that year. I sort of facilitated, my role that year was really just facilitating conversation.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't do a hell of a lot of coaching. There was Jamie Henry it was in her first season, so that might be a name you're a bit familiar with. Um, I probably did my most coaching with her that year because she was in her first year, but again, a natural talent that just needed some guidance and some confidence, which um, I didn't really have to coach her in the game sense. Like I could learn on the job, and I had a group that was really confident and had a huge, huge amount of knowledge between them that they kind of led the charge that year, which was awesome. So
Hmm.
yeah, really, really great learning environment for me, and I got to hone my craft in probably in my first year, one of the most difficult and adverse heavy environments, and then the second year, the complete opposite. So yeah, really grateful for those experiences.
See, it kind of went from one extreme to the other. So that's it,
100%.
which it gets it teaches you a lot. And again, it's almost you almost learn as much from the players that you're coaching because of the experience that you had. And in the long run, it actually benefits you in the long run. So I want to have some fun with this because for me, I take a lot of joy in coaching when I see that light bulb moment. So what is your favorite part about coaching? And then the opposite, what's the hardest part about coaching football?
Oh, my favorite part about coaching. Um, I think you just summed it up right. It's those moments that a player has been really like something they've been really struggling
Mhm.
with that they finally conquer. And that looks different for different people. So for some people, yeah, it'll be a light bulb moment where they didn't understand something and it just clicks. For someone else, it might be they've been chasing this goal of a 2K time because, they're the most talented athlete in the world, but their fitness lets them down and they nail it one day. And that is just, just seeing them accomplish something that they've really, they've poured themselves into, um, is the coolest part of it. Um, the flip side, the worst part, has got to be that week to week, there's only so many spots on a team,
Mhm.
and someone's got to sit out, someone's got to miss out, and when I feel like I'm the kind of coach, and it's something I pride myself on, is that I'm the kind of coach who really like deeply cares about everyone that I
Mhm.
work with, and I try to build really strong relationships with all my athletes. That can be really heartbreaking because while it's fantastic when you get to give them the good news that they made the squads, the flip side of that is someone is either injured or someone's out.
Mhm.
Um, and that's having those conversations is really difficult. I try to always approach it from a position of like just honesty, and that doesn't have to be brutal. It doesn't have to be harsh. It's just got to be um, like honesty is just
Mhm.
the nicest way of doing things, and at least then if we can be clear, being clear is being kind. If the clearer you are with someone, the better they understand where they stand, and sort of the more they can see things like that coming too, so they're less likely to be blindsided. But yeah, there's some really difficult conversations you have to have as a coach, and while it was hard as a league coach with adults, it's a lot harder with teenagers,
Mhm.
because there's so much going on for these kids these days, and they're going home with their own disappointment, but so often they're also going home with their parents' disappointment or their family's disappointment. And that's also a weight that, they carry, and I'm really conscious of as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely understand. It's the worst thing to sit there and tell a player that they're not going to be playing seniors or they're going to be playing reserves or not even dressing. It's was never one. You never want to do it, and I can only imagine what some of the conversations you're going to have this year with. But we will actually move on to that just a little bit. I actually want to talk to you about one of the reasons that I actually found you, and that's because of your developmental coaching. Because I think this is it's such a different thing. You just don't see developmental coaches. I know over here you have the QB coaches for gridiron football, but for a lot of sports, you don't have that individual. So I'm fascinated. How did you get into development coaching? How did that kind of start for you?
Yeah, so my private coaching sort of side of things it started kind of out of necessity, to be fair. Coaching itself doesn't pay super well.
Hmm.
Um, Coaching women pays a lot less, and I
Yep.
mean a lot less. And I made a choice really early that I've been approached about a number of roles coaching men's over the years that would pay me sort of 3 to 4 times as much as what I'm earning now.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't have to go back to a full-time job or a part-time job outside of caring for my kids. So I've made a conscious decision to not coach men's, that my passion and where I want to pour my energies into women's football, because I think that that area has had so much time and effort and has so much talent already there that I kind of consciously made the choice to focus somewhere else. Um, so from a yeah, running sort of a private coaching business came out of necessity because like I've still got bills to pay and I've still
Hmm.
got mouths to feed. And I'm very aware of the really privileged position that I find myself in and that my family finds themselves in. So being able to have had, well, like we're 4 years of maternity leave now, essentially. Like
Hmm.
after the second year, my job was gone. So I can't return back to that position. But um, I've been at home with my kids full time for 4 years, and that doesn't look like it's going to end in the next couple. So um, that's been a really fortunate position, but I still am looking forward to what happens after that. And I don't want to go back to a 9 to 5 and things like that when I've poured so much time and effort into developing this craft. And it's something that I think I'm pretty good at. And I've had pretty positive feedback. So it's something I really want to make a run of. And as I said, right now, I don't have a full-time role as a coach. I don't have a part-time role as a coach. I have a coaching contract. And that this is the first year that I've had a contract that has had like a I don't want to say decent, but it had a amount attached to it that I can kind of be pretty proud of. Previous to that, it's been either nothing or a very, very small amount.
Hmm.
Sort of would cover maybe my fuel. Um, so yeah, that's been something that as much as it actually sits a little funny with me, which is a really interesting situation for me, that for me, footy's always been about like equal access and everyone being able to access quality coaching and support and having a really great community and environment. And for me, my private coaching sometimes represents the opposite of that, in that I do charge sort of um, premium pricing for access to one-on-one sessions with myself or small group sessions. But the way I kind of have to frame that for myself is that I'm giving these players this opportunity to do this and to get this extra coaching that they otherwise wouldn't get,
Hmm.
so that I can continue pouring my time into these other areas with players that can't afford that, for
Hmm.
example. Yeah, interesting, but yeah, it's something that I actually thought I was being really unique with when I first thought up the idea. But as you sort of flagged earlier, there's actually a number of Instagram accounts of coaches. In my experience, though, all men. So I think
I was just about to say all men, and from what I've seen, many of them coach both men and women. So the fact that you are focused primarily on women is unique. So I wouldn't fully put yourself down the totem pole anymore because as I noticed, you are a female coach coaching only females, where a few of them that I have seen, the Enhanced Kick Academy and a couple others are men that are coaching men, and some of them actually do have women, not as many. It's 100, but no, I found it fascinating again because it's just it's you see it a lot over here because there's parents that are nuts that they think that if I spend this amount of money, my kid's going to go to the NFL or my kid's going to go to the NBA. So you see it all the time. So it was the fact that I didn't see it very much in
yeah.
Australia when it comes to it. So I think it's very awesome. And again, for you being in the women's space, I think it's incredible because I've always said, I think women's footy coverage wise, coaching wise, playing wise, has always kind of been told you don't need as much because you're not as special as the men.
Or yeah, or we're treated like
Yep,
small men. And I
exactly.
think research and like if we want to get into like the health and science research and stuff, which is a whole nother tangent I could go on for hours about, but
And I
always
would not
have been
mind
treated like,
it.
like small men. There's only there's not research into how certain things affect female bodies.
Hmm.
The 2K time trial was designed on male
Yep.
bodies, male athletes at elite levels. So we're actually now we're seeing more and more AFL clubs that might be moving away from that as a test for female athletes
There you
because
go.
it's just not representative. Is that the right word?
Hmm.
Representative um, of what of what they need to get out of that testing. So um, yeah, I think the it's a key part of why I've decided to focus solely on women is that there are parts of our game that are identical. Like I'm not
Yep.
going to ever
Yes.
deny that, but there are also parts of our game that inevitably are different.
Hmm.
Um, and having played elite men's footy or local men's footy or whatever that is, having coached in that environment doesn't necessarily qualify you to be an excellent female coach for the
Exactly.
female.
Hmm.
Um, you can, by all means, there's transferable stuff and you can do the work to transfer, but I think there's this expectation that you can kind of just copy and paste. And that's 100. And I'm not just talking in communication styles either. We're not just saying,
Agree.
"Oh, you've got to." I had someone today that mentioned to me that they thought that basically we just that women have to be spoken to differently because we're softer and more gentle and things like that. And that if we treat men like that, then we're just training them
Feminine.
to be women. And I was like, oh, I think we're going to stop this chat because we're definitely on different wavelengths. And I think from an
Hmm.
emotional safety perspective, the outcomes are so much greater if we speak to everyone in that way.
Hmm.
But from a skill acquisition perspective, a lot of the athletes we're dealing with haven't been playing this since they were kids. Or
Hmm.
if they have, they've also been playing netball and they've also been playing hockey and they've been
Yep.
playing basketball because they're the avenues for women in AFL are still narrow.
Yep.
Um, there are just as I'm not saying there are no less clubs. That's fine. Like at the
They're
AFL level.
widening by the number, but I still agree with you that the pathways are still far narrower than they are in the men's. I 100% will agree with you.
And also getting to that top level, like you can't always live off an AFLW player's salary.
Yes,
So
100% true.
the women are having to make these choices from a very young age about balancing which sport they're going to
Yep.
prioritize. And so they're juggling rather than investing time. And we can talk about the benefits of not necessarily specializing in a sport until you're 14, 15, because, research has been done into peaking
Hmm.
too early. I previously worked in triathlon for Triathlon WA, and there's a lot of research around why Australian triathletes aren't seen as often on podiums now internationally, and it's to do with early specialization.
Hmm.
So there's still value in versatility across different sports, but the fact is that the way we engage with the game, the way the physicality engages, the way socially women are not programmed but conditioned
Mm.
to respond to instruction and to respond to criticism and feedback is also different. So women are traditionally conditioned by society to seek to please more than they seek to perform. Men, on the flip side, often seek to perform more than they seek to please. So I had a question the other day from a coach around why, when I give I give a female and a male athlete the same drill, but it has a running pattern in it where they collect a ball and they handball. Why will the female just run that pattern if the ball doesn't come to her in the right spot? She gets really flustered, versus the boy will just chase the ball. I said, because you told her to run like this, and that's what she's going to do.
Hmm.
You told him to run like this, but he goes, yeah, but the ball's more important because that's how I prove my worth.
Hmm.
So he chases the ball. So we've just conditioned them to respond differently to the same instruction. You just need to give her a different instruction.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of this stuff that gets missed when you go, I'm going to put out an online program that does skill development, and it's for men and women. And sometimes that'll work and sometimes that won't. And there's just some nuances there that I think often get missed. So from my perspective, if I can help bridge that gap for women who maybe do feel like they fall through the cracks with those kinds of programs, then that's a huge win for me.
Hmm. No,
I
100%.
got very passionate there
No,
about
there,
that for a
I
while.
I appreciate it and love it because as somebody, again, I've said it numerous times in the podcast. Most people that listen to it know I am a very big advocate on the W side and for women's football because I avidly think it is the growth area that I think AFL House will never admit that the women's side has 10 times more growth opportunities than it does in the men. Because we've seen it. We've seen it when it comes to the growth of clubs. We've seen it when it comes to the fact that Queensland is exploding with female footballers. But what's wrong with SA? Because there's more Queensland footy players than there are SA players nowadays. It just shows you there's so much room for growth in that particular area of footy that I think there needs to be a little bit of a reevaluation when it comes to it. Again, do I think AFL House will ever do that? I will go on my rant and tell you I've said it many times. I think AFL House uses AFLW as a PR scheme. I don't really think they give two flying you know whats about the women's game. I think they purely did it for a PR to go, hey, look at us. We're doing something for women. In the long run, they don't really care. They know that the men is where their bread is buttered, and that's what they really focus on. The women is just, we're going to give them a few crumbs here or there to shut them up. And that's really the way it goes. And I hate that. But if you watch this, the way the things have gone, it's 100% the way it is. And it's frustrating as hell because just some of the amazing females that play in the W are some incredible talents. And I truly, truly appreciate watching them play the sport because I've said it numerous times. I think the women go harder at the football than the men do. I really, really do. So I'm 100% thank you for your passion. I appreciate it. And again, I love what you're doing. Again, I follow you on Instagram. I thought it was too good an opportunity not to sit here and chat with you. So I want to let you kind of humble brag about this. So explain to me your training sessions because I've seen some of them. I think they're fantastic. You're really, really helping bridge a gap in the coaching scheme when it comes to females. And again, if I'm WA footy and the waffle W, any of these coaches, I'm sitting there loving that you are giving this opportunity and giving this very great knowledge to some of these youngsters in WA.
Yeah, so I guess from a private coaching perspective, it really depends on the athlete.
Hmm.
So I've got athletes who come to me and they just want to do like a one-off session And in that case, like to be honest, those are probably the most tricky
Hmm.
because I've got to bring them in, assess where they're at, and help them in some way, like send them with something
Hmm.
in an hour. And that can be quite challenging, but basically they'd come in. I have a handful of drills that I do that look at sort of have a broad range of different skills on show. So I
Hmm.
can kind of pick which ones probably need the most work. Personally, I find a lot of people want to work on their kicking. So obviously we kick. And as much as girls don't always love it, I make them work on ground balls because over 60% of women's football is played at the AFLW
Yep.
level is played on the ground.
Yep.
Um, and obviously that percentage rises the lower the level. So,
Yep.
that's higher in the W, higher in the Rogers Cup, higher again in PFL, higher again in junior footy. And most of my athletes sit in the junior footy. So
Hmm.
we're looking at I would hazard a guess at 80% of the
Hitting the
gameplay.
ball. Yep.
So you have to be really good at that. And if you are, you instantly set yourself apart. So they're kind of the things that I focus on. And then we do some skill drills around that. And for some athletes, that will look like literally stripping the kick back to just work on the ball drop.
Ball drop. Yep.
For others, it's a pretty workable kick. And we start looking at more tricky things around what does your opposite side look like? Can we kick across the body? Can we kick sliders? Do we know how to kick to advantage? Do we know how to place a kick, weight a kick? What's our distance and our power like? Do we know the purpose of different styles of kicking
Hmm.
and that sort of thing? The other flip side of that is I've got one athlete with me at the moment who's been with me for over 6 months and her growth has been insane.
Hmm.
Saw her today and I won't see her for most of next month because she's about to go into the WA 16s Futures program. So she'll be training 3 or 4 times a week already.
Hmm.
But just thinking about where she started to where she is now is incredible. But she and I sat down and put together a development plan. So when I do development plans with athletes, I don't write them. My girls write them. So they work through, I give them a bit of a template that sort of looks quickly at where they think they're at skill wise. And we rate it 1 to 5 or 0 to 5. So 0, I can't do this at all. I actually have no understanding of this skill at all.
Hmm.
5 being I am the most elite and I should be playing AFLW if this was all it was graded on.
Hmm.
And we look at that. And then we look at some things that they think are their strengths or their areas that kind of set them apart. So if we're looking at just technical and tactical skills, so you're used to your ball and the way you read the game and the way you are composed on field, what kind of sets you apart and makes me put your magnet on the board every week? And then I also get them to identify an area they think they can improve on. And that's usually much easier for them, to be honest, because that's really quick for them to sort of identify. That gives me a really good tell on where they think they're at, where they would like their focus, because obviously they're paying for these sessions. So
Hmm.
we want to help them get what they want out of them. And then I also sort of give them, after we've finished the document and after we've put the plan together, then I also give them feedback and say, well, I also think you could work in this area. So we're going to tailor your sessions around these. But we also look at things like their mental skills, because I think that's a huge part of the game, their confidence, their resilience, how they speak to themselves when they make mistakes on field, how quickly they bounce back from them. We look at their sort of well-being areas, so things outside of football. What are your relationships like? What is your nutrition like? What's your hydration like? How do you sleep? Do you actually go to bed before 10 p.m.? Most teenagers, that's a no. Do you use your phone before you go to bed? Or do you give yourself some space from that? Um, all the things that make them a person outside of football, because sort of we said before, development wise, we can create the most perfect athlete. But if they're falling apart outside of those 4 walls of the footy club, it means nothing because footy is only for so long, right? I'm the first, I can attest to that. Footy only goes for so long, and then what do you have? And I think sport is a really important vehicle in particularly Australian culture, but just in culture in general, for creating really great people. And we have the power to make or break that when you're in a coaching role. So for me, yeah, using these opportunities to help build stronger people inevitably makes a stronger athlete, because people who are resilient, people who cope well under pressure, people who have strong friendships and relationships, and therefore when they walk off the field after a really bad day, they're not falling apart, are going to perform better on game day, and they enjoy themselves better, and players that have fun and enjoy themselves play the game better.
Mm-hmm.
Our game's super imperfect. Like, I come from basketball where you could write a play and it would look like that when you ran it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do that in football. Like,
You can try
so
all you want, but it won't happen.
so hard. Even the ball won't bounce the way you want it to.
Yep.
Like, it's so the more we build these players up to be emotionally able to cope with failure or what they perceive as failure, the better they are on field, but also the better they are out there in the real world. So that's kind of how my sessions work, is that, if you are one-on-one and you're getting one day, then you're going to get what you get. And if you're willing to put in a little bit more time and effort with me, then we'll put together a plan and we'll have a step-by-step plan on how we get there. And as I said, this athlete has just skyrocketed her. Yeah, I cannot wait to see what she does in the next few years, because she's just an exceptional talent.
Okay. Well, I will not put that out, but I may ask after the podcast, because it's something that I keep track with Peter Williams at Rookie Me Central. So I'm going to tuck that name into the back of my head, and maybe
Yeah.
see for the future, because it sounds like you've got an absolute ripper there. So I'm going to ask this because as somebody that's helped try to teach this game to Americans, so it's just as much as you said, as 21 years old. When I'm teaching 30-year-olds how to try to kick the footy, that if it is completely foreign. What do you think is the hardest skill to teach when it comes to football?
Oh, I mean, it's really easy to say kicking, because it's probably one of the most foreign skills to most people,
Hmm.
unless you're a kicker in the NFL, or a Gaelic player. Then you sweet as. But yeah, that's probably the easiest. But I honestly, like, if you haven't played a full contact sport before, um, and I know, like, you could argue it's not a skill, but like the physicality and being able to tackle and take a tackle
Hmm.
and then get up
Agree.
and run a 200-meter sprint, you can't coach that. Like, I can teach you how to kick, but I can't teach you how to bounce back from, a 90-kilo woman flattening you and then
Hmm.
having to chase the ball down.
Or
Like,
taking a good hip and shoulder just right. That's
yeah. And like, we
I've
can coach you in the safety
yeah.
and how to do that safely. But I try to avoid telling my athletes these stories. But my husband is like 100-kilo man. He is built like a brick shit house. He's
Hmm.
one of the strongest players I've ever seen. He plays inside mid. Well, he doesn't anymore, because he's a little bit older and a bit slower than his teammates.
Hmm.
But he used to play inside mid, and he was the big-bodied midfielder that just
Hmm.
barreled at the ball and broke through. Legs like tree trunks. Just
Hmm.
to paint the picture,
Yep.
he has in his career, he's done his ACL, he's fractured his face in 3 places,
Hmm.
he's broken his nose twice. He's broken his jaw in 2 places so that this entire part detached and dropped, and he
Hmm.
had to have that screwed back into place. He's broken his collarbone into 4 pieces. Did his PCL? I think that might be it.
Hmm.
Think. But that's since I met him less than 12 years ago.
Hmm.
So in 12 years, we've had and that is purely, none of those are from poor technique. None of those are from being unsafe.
It's just the for
All
lack
of
of.
those have been
Yep.
from good hits
Yep.
or like laying a tackle, someone handballs, and as they've handballed, their heads come back and cracked him in the face and smashed
Yep.
his face open. Like unlucky stuff
Mm-hmm.
that we can't teach you how to come back from that.
Mm-hmm.
That takes something different. Like I tell him constantly that he's entirely unhinged because the fact he still plays is beyond me. But it takes a different kind of person. I
Mm-hmm.
snapped my finger last year at training as a coach. Took a mark, I lost the ball in the light. The ball hit the top of my finger, and I thought I just dislocated it and I just popped it
Mm-hmm.
back in, which should never do. I now know. I had snapped my finger, I'd taken a chunk of like pulled a chunk of bone off, and it took me 2 days to even go and get it seen
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, no, it's fine. Like I was carrying my kids, I was pushing the pram, I didn't even
Yep.
think about it. Um, you just have to sometimes be a little bit crazy and have
Mm-hmm.
a really high threshold.
No, I could tell you some fun stories of some of the guys that I've been in there that did not come back from injuries up here. So no, 100% on with you on that. So I want again, I want to let you humble brag on your latest job that you said, and that is taking the head coaching job for the Rogers Cup side with with the Perth Demons. Again, the newest Waffle W side, adding all of the 9 clubs now that are not connected either Fremantle or the West Coast. So I asked this, I mean, why did you decide to take the job?
I That's a really good question. I actually applied for the league head coach role. And I got down to like the final interviews for that, and I was super, super excited about that. And then I got a call saying, sorry, we're going to offer the role to someone else, which was pretty shattering.
Hmm.
Um, totally understood though. Now I know who it is. I totally get it, and I would have done the same thing.
Hmm.
But obviously shattered at the time, and they said, "Do you want? We'd really like to consider you for the Rogers role. We're also interviewing for that. Is that something you consider?" And I had said up until now, I don't want to do Rogers. I ran a swim school for like 5 years.
Hmm.
You couldn't pay me to do with parents. I like coaching waffle because when a player comes into the Waffle W side, we make it really clear that in all the clubs I've been at, we've made it really clear that that player is now considered a senior player and they're going to be treated as such. So my communication is with them.
Adults. Yep.
And they're going to be treated as adults unless like there are exceptions to that rule around, when there's really difficult conversations and they want support people in the room, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Yep. I
Um,
get it.
generally speaking, that's an adult. And that, I'm going to treat her like that.
Hmm.
And then when they offered me the Rogers role, I kind of went, oh, okay, let me
Hmm.
think about it. And I went away and I spoke to Steph, who was my head of coach development at East Perth. And I said, look, I've interviewed for this role. They've offered me this instead. What do you think? And she came back and said, well, I just took the head coach role. So that's who got that one.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we had a bit of a chat around what I thought I'd get out of coaching. And I had a chat with a few other people that I really respect and kind of landed on the thought that I haven't head coached outside of the PFL and outside that COVID season. And it was something I really wanted to do and really wanted to test myself with. And it didn't really need to be a waffle side. Like a Rogers Cup side was still going to be a really cool challenge.
Hmm.
Personally, I've always held this really strong belief that like development is the cornerstone to football or to sport. And I just talked about like my really strong passion for developing people, not just players.
Hmm.
And the more I reflected on it, the more I thought actually Rogers Cup really sits well with that sort of coaching philosophy and probably more so than league because
Hmm.
I am developing players and I am considering, what's best for them, not just for the team. Whereas, league can get really cutthroat and it becomes we pick the best team to win on the day. And that's
Yep.
that. And if you're in, you're in, you're out, you're out. If a player comes back from AFL and we just pop that name off and obviously we deal with that player with empathy and compassion, but that's the nature of the beast.
Hmm.
That's different at Rogers, and I kind of like that development piece and that personal connection. It's a huge challenge because I have 40 something athletes that I have to consider on an individual basis, not just a team one. But
Hmm.
yeah, I kind of, the more I reflected on it, went, actually, I think I've been chasing the wrong beast for a little while here. And I think
Hmm.
maybe this is probably a better spot for me. And I've loved every second since.
Hmm.
From the moment I made that decision, um, I have been welcomed with open arms. I have loved the girls I get to work with. I've made, like, I feel like I've flourished in this role, and it's been really cool. Huge, huge learning curve, huge amount of work, but really excited to see what happens when the season hits, because I think we've got a really talented group that are going to do some really special stuff this year.
And I absolutely love it. And to find out that you feel like you're really in the role that you were supposed to do, that's awesome. So, and actually, this is a great thing for me because I've always wanted to ask this because I've covered the Waffle W, I've covered the Waffle, and I hear about the cults all the time on around the Waffle. But they don't talk about the Rogers Cup as much. So if you could just walk me through this like I'm a 2-year-old, explain the Rogers Cup to me when it comes to the W, when it comes to the Waffle W landscape. Like what is the Rogers Cup?
Rogers Cup is pretty much the Colts for the girls.
Okay.
Um, if I'm gonna really simplify it, so it's a underage competition. So we can have 15 girls in their 15th year,
Hmm.
right up to girls in their 19th year. 19-year-old, like, we're limited with the number of those two age groups, so I can only have 3 on my playing list from each end, week to week. I think it might be a little bit different. The 19s, it might be 4. I'll have to double check that. But to be fair, I don't have 4 on my list, so it won't affect me this year.
Hmm.
Um, so we're limited in that, but basically it's that middle cohort, so 16s to 18 year
18 too.
olds. Um, it's the development pathway, so it's where they come out of junior footy, they go into what we call future development squad, which is like a little program, runs for a couple of months. They play a couple of games, and from there we invite a group to train at the end of the year before Christmas. I think I want to say we had like 56 or 58 players in that cohort. 10 were sent to league to sort of train up there. And then we sort of evaluated them for 5 or so weeks. So I want to say we did like 12 or 13 sessions and evaluated who we wanted to keep in the squad, and who we could release. And then yeah, we've sort of landed with what we've got now. We've just landed on who's going to be in the squad, like the playing squad, and then who's going to be our train-ons this year. We're not at capacity in the squad, so there's potential for movement, but
Hmm.
yeah, sort of who I feel comfortable will play or feature at some point this year, and who I think still has some work in and development to do. And to be honest, they're pretty much most of our young players. So which is really exciting because we've got this group of girls that might not feature this year on the field, but we're getting constant contact with them for a year.
Hmm.
What can we help them with and help develop in them that next year is going to be exceptional on field? So
Hmm.
that's really cool. Cool. But basically, yeah, it's basically Colts for the girls. The key difference in my experience is that girls don't get drafted out of the Rogers. It's not a program or a league yet that is advanced or developed enough
Hmm.
where to the point where draft, even highlight reels and highlight footage could be cut from that program, that league yet. So generally speaking, you won't see draft talent coming out of there. You'll see it has that most of those girls have debuted
In the W.
in league
Yep.
and played almost a season, generally speaking, through the league side, in and out of the league side.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's the key difference. But otherwise, it's just an underage feeder
Underage.
competition, which
Okay.
is what the Colts is.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that the men call it Colts and the women call it Rogers Cup. I was like, is there a difference? I just
There's a
it,
reason for that. So
yeah.
it's actually named after Charmaine Rogers, who
Okay.
if you're in women's football in Perth, if you've been involved in the last 30 years, she's an absolute powerhouse in the sport. And yeah, you will have met her if you lived here and played women's footy at some point. So
Okay. I will definitely have to look that name up and do a little bit of research. I will claim my ignorance on that one. Again, I'm still getting into it. I'm going into my third or fourth year covering covering the women's side of the Waffle W again. As I was telling Tiffany off mic, I said one of my first discoveries was the legend that is Zippy Fish, which sounds like she had quite the legendary status out in WA even before she broke onto the W scene this year, which again, I always laugh that I was one of those that, especially in Swans Nation, many people knew about her through me. So, which I thought was kind of fascinating. So I will go to this again. We're putting our foot early in the door when it comes to it, but I'm going to ask you future goals. So close your eyes in the next 10 years. Could you see yourself coaching league? And could you see yourself maybe someday looking at a W spot when it comes to coaching roles?
look, I will never say no to an opportunity. That's something I've learned about myself the hard way.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, as I said, I've applied for league roles, and sort of had conversations with various clubs around that and what that would look like. Um, it's not probably the right role or the appropriate spot for me right now, which is I'm really comfortable with. But yeah, I think from an AFLW perspective, like that's a door that yeah, I'd love to open. That's it's a huge there's a lot of competition getting coaching roles in the W.
Hmm.
The more players that retire from the W, the harder that seems to get too.
Can
So
understand that.
yeah, I think would I ever see myself sort of head coaching in a W role? That's probably another kettle of fish. I think for me, like maybe, but right now, as I said to you before, my passion is in the development space, and I think head coaching an AFLW side there's so many different considerations to be made,
Hmm.
and you've got a finger in so many different pies that I'm not sure I would feel like
It's
I could.
comfortable.
I just feel like maybe I couldn't give 100% to the areas that I think I need to,
I get it.
or that I would want to.
Hmm.
But that's not to say that, like, I've often said that about a lot of things, and then I'm there and I'm doing it, and
Hmm.
I'm surrounded by the right people. There's
Yep.
nothing to say you can't do that because you've got the
And who
right
knows?
support systems. Other
Yep.
people are helping you with the other areas. So,
Yep.
yeah, as I said, I would love to work in a W environment and be putting what I've learned in all my other areas to
Hmm.
work there and
Well,
developing those skills. So
yep.
maybe one day.
Maybe. And another thing too that you could even that's even almost a little bit of a goal that could definitely possible is coaching the under 18s West Australian side is definitely an option because you'd still be in your developmental situations, plus you'd be able to show some state pride on that so a little bit too. So no, so it's not I absolutely again the passion in each of the in different parts of the country, like I said, the waffle pride is absolutely fantastic. Again, I think the waffle a little bit, especially in the women's side, I think is starting to really kind of poke its head out a lot. There's some WA girls, like I said, Zippy Fish and Molly O'Hare from a couple of years ago. One that was drafted this year that I cannot wait to see because I think she's going to be the steal of the draft is Carius Daddario, the former Swans midfielder.
I
I
love Paris.
I think she's going to be the steal of this draft because I still do not know how St. Kilda got her at 59. Like legitimately, I said in my review, I said I forgot she wasn't drafted, and when she did, I literally went, "This legitimately is the steal of the draft this year." And she went like the second to last pick. So I felt bad for her because she deserved to be so much higher in the draft order, but it's just the way bids and everything kind of went out. But if I'm St. Kilda, I'm jumping for joy because I think you got an absolute ripper in Karis Daddario. Legitimately
You you genuinely couldn't have a better person. Karis,
100%.
I I coached Karis at Swans. I coached in the state 18s, and she is such an awesome person, such a hard worker. And yeah, you put a carrot in front of that girl, and she will not stop
Hmm.
until she's there.
Yeah.
Like,
I cannot wait. She's one of those, honestly, I'm sitting here thinking about it with doing my fantasy thing. Is she may be one of those fantasy midfielders I grab because I think she's exactly what St. Kilda needed, legitimate on that. So speaking of AFL, let's go to it. Do you support a Waffle W or an AFL side? And if so, do you mind if we chat a little bit of their seasons this last year?
sure, sure. Well, I'm obviously a Perth Demons fan now, right? Um, I will always have a soft spot for the Swan Districts girls because
Okay.
that's me. And my husband played at Swans. We both played number 38. So that's that on that, I guess. But AFL wise, I'm a Fremantle supporter.
Okay. You're never gonna get any shit from me. Trust me. That's not my role.
Oh,
I literally in my supporter series, I did talk with my West Coast Eagles person recently, and it was the most interesting conversation because it was the one of the few episodes where the men not so much fun to talk about and the women were fun to talk about because of the way they go. So I'm 100 will never give you shit on that one when it comes to it. Again, I have a lot of Fremantle supporters, including a few American ones that I know of who are very passionate Fremantle supporters. So I know the passion. I know the passion.
I feel like
Absolutely
to
love it.
to be a Fremantle supporter, you have to be a passionate supporter.
I agree. I
I have
100%
been
agree.
alive as long as the Fremantle Football Club. Like they literally started in 1995 and I was
Mhm.
born in 1995. And we have not, yeah, I've won more premierships than that club has. So look, I love them to bits. I what are you gonna say
There's
about it though?
there's
I just
nothing
feel
wrong.
like we've had so many opportunities and we
Okay,
just fall short.
so I got to do that as the American. I must ask your thoughts of Mason Cox now donning the purple and white.
I don't know. Like nothing. I have nothing against Mason Cox. I think he in his prime was a really talented footballer. Um, what will he add to the Fremantle side? I'm a little bit I'm a little bit hedgy around. I'm sort of wondering what they're seeing, how they're seeing that forward line unfold. Or is he being brought in sort of as an experience piece that is going to help guide some of the younger talent, but maybe doesn't get as many games or as much game time.
Hmm?
Um, yeah, I'm interested to see how that
How they
how those
experiment.
cards fall.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's the impact on Luke Jackson. Do they fully say, Luke Jackson, you are not playing ruck anymore. You are going to be a midfielder? Is that what they do? Do they bring him in as that kind of um target full forward to be able to use some of their speed that they have with Swistowski and some of their small forwards that they have, especially with that. Yeah, there's a lot of different question marks that I see with that move. I'm 100% with you. I'm I'm a wait and see on it.
Yeah.
I'm more leaning towards I think he's your emergency full forward if you start to have some of the injuries that they've fought with for their full forward line. So, and actually,
Yeah.
I want to do this. My must ask this as a Swan Districts person. How cool was it for your W side to make a grand final? I know you ran into the heavyweight title winner that is Claremont, which always sucks because they're so
Oh,
good. But how good was it for the Black Ducks women's side to make a grand final when I think everybody kind of chalked it up to Subi Claremont grand final?
I said it from round one that Swans would play a grand final. There's something like knowing those girls the way I know them, and not all of them, because obviously I've been gone for a few years now, but knowing enough of those girls and that senior group, um, the way they bonded together this year, there wasn't much that was going to stop them. And to be honest, to go down the way where they went down in that grand final was shatter. Like I cried.
Hmm.
I wasn't. I'm yeah, not even ashamed to say that. I watched it. I wasn't able to be there in person because of some personal stuff and traveling and things, but
Mm,
I watched it on streamer with my kids next to me, and I like sobbed when they lost that grand final because the heart I've lived that heartbreak with those so many of those girls
mm.
back in 2021. Um, and yeah, to just be so agonizingly close
Close.
again.
Yep. Yep.
But for them to get there, I'm so proud of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so many of those girls, I've seen the work that's gone into that. I've seen how hard, how far they've come, how hard they've worked, just relentlessly. Like yeah. And as I said, I'm not coaching there anymore and I'm not playing there anymore, but they'll always have a soft spot unless they're playing me, and then gloves come off. Um, because I know all of you, and
Hmm.
we have a few insider a bit of insider knowledge, but yeah, if it's them versus plays just about anyone else, there's going to be a soft spot there for me
Hmm.
because yeah, I just care about those kids so much, or the not kids, women so much. So
Hmm. But the one thing I got to say though is this last Waffle W final was incredible. The fact that every single game was less than a goal was I remember talking to Paul Persick at the end of the year and going, it is hard to see how any finals will ever live up to this one because of all of the excitement, and each game had just this raw tension in it in each and every single one, even the grand final, because there was a little bit of me that worried for Swans that they had put so much energy to get to the grand final that then you face the Titan that is Claremont in a grand final, which they've won so many. They've again, the program that Claremont has done is ridiculously good. But for them to come this close, as much as it sucks, there's got to be a little bit of pride in that change room because you took the heavyweight champ all the way to the final bell. Who knows? Again, I losing Karis Didario, that's going to hurt because she was so incredible for them at Swan District again. I'm stoked for this year because I cannot wait to see how does Subi bounce back? What does Claremont have, considering they seem to always reload? And then how does Swan District back up a grand final appearance? It's going to be the Waffle W is going to be insane this year because I think you're seeing growth. Cannot wait to see how Perth does. They get wins in their first season, which no Waffle W team had ever done before in their first season. So that was incredible. I'm
so
the
excited
new,
to
as
see
you said, the new coaching staff the new coaching staff comes in. How does that change their game style? How does Peel bounce back? I'm so excited for the Waffle W this year. I cannot wait. Like I'm sitting here, it's January, and I'm going, come on, March, come on, let's go. Because I
yeah,
just
yeah,
want the season to get started. And I know for you, there's so much that still has to be done. So you're kind of slow down, slow down. But for me, as somebody who loves my footy, I want the season to come that much closer. So these chats are so much fun. So I want to end the podcast with some fun questions. So we've put on your coach, we've put on your player. Now I want you to put on your fan hat for just the tiniest bit. As I said on many podcasts, I have not been to Australia. It is my goal. It is my bucket list. I've said many a times I think I could couch surf the country and never see a hotel room because I have so many friends that are like, Donnie, when you get over here, mate, let me know. I got your first beer. If you have a couch, that'd be fantastic. So I'll ask this. When I go, I want to be completely ready. And again, I'm an American, so we love our food at our sporting events. So I must ask, what's your go-to food at the football?
um, I don't really eat at the footy.
You're not
I'm
the
that
first
weirdo
person to
that
say
doesn't
that.
eat food. Yeah. Or like it's like lollies to like keep my sugar up so that I don't pass out. Because I will pretty much be glued to my seat. Um, I will get up at halftime to go to the bathroom, and other than that, I'm not moving.
Hmm.
I don't drink, so I'm not going to the bar. I've got my water bottle and my lollies, and I'm set.
That's fine. Hey,
Um,
you were not the first person to say that. I know I had a bloke who I talked to as a Carlton supporter that said he goes to his seat, he buys one beer, and he sips it the entire game. He says he's such a nervous wreck he can't eat. So he either has to eat before he goes to the ground or he eats after the game if they've won. So you're not the first person to say that. Not a
yeah.
problem at all. So as you kind of said then the next question is the most important when you go to the football. Where's your ideal place to sit when it comes to watching the footy?
Yeah, I'm a weirdo. I like to sit in like the high. So I've only been to the footy in WA, I will
Hmm.
say. But in Optus Stadium, obviously we have the five levels. The fifth level, you feel a little removed, I will be
Hmm.
honest, but you get the best vision of the game. So if you're a nerd like me who likes to watch what's happening off the ball and behind the ball,
Hmm.
um, and watch all the structures. Sitting in the top, like not dead side on, but sort of in line with the 50,
Yep.
up nice up and high, in line with the 50, you get a nice like view of the whole field. And it's probably my favorite spot to sit because you just get so much vision of the game.
Hmm.
Second only to sitting in the coach's box, because I will say the view in the coach's box is actually second to none.
Hmm.
The Optus Stadium coaches boxes are amazing. So
Fantastic. Absolutely, absolutely love. Again, if I were to get lucky again, I'm 100%. I'm such a nerd when it comes to it. When they show full vision on like AFL 360, I am just absolutely glued to it when I watch it because I want to see the different movements. Like there are people up here that I know of that in the States that know I am a footy nerd. I mean, I have my coach's board not too back here. I will sit there and play. I will sit there and move my magnets. I specifically bought magnets for my board to be able to move stuff around to kind of see. So I'm 100% with you. I know I will geek out if and when that will eventually happen. And I always end my episode with this because I've started a playlist, and this is fun because I never know what I'm going to get. So I'm going to ask this. What is the favorite game of football you have ever seen? TV, live, doesn't matter. Men's, women's, don't care. Juniors, doesn't matter. Favorite game of football you have ever seen?
Um, look, it's probably not because it was a good game. It might have been. I don't remember that much about it, but the favorite game I ever saw was I went to the first ever game of football at Optus, which was a W game between Fremantle and Collingwood.
Hmm.
Um, as I said, probably wasn't the best game from a game sense perspective, but yeah, got to sit, just about front row seats because it wasn't ticketed seating. You just came in and sat down, and
Hmm.
um, that was the coolest experience. So that one just sticks out so much for me. Yeah, was
Hmm.
really exciting. That or my husband's debut in the waffle, which was also a huge day.
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong. Again, I never know what I'm gonna get. I've gotten some fun ones. I've even gotten a junior football league game one time, which was something that a person I talked to, they played in it. That was their favorite game of football. I didn't even watch it. They played in it. So I absolutely love those. You never know. So I appreciate it as a footy nut that I've become. It's cool to just see the differences with each person on that. So, well, Tiffany, that is it. That is all my questions. This has been a fantastic chat. I'm sitting here loving chatting with you because I love very much how you are because it's very much the same. Passionate about footy, passionate about development, passionate about this sport, and I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. I genuinely appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me and thank you for the invite. As you said at the start, it kind of caught me out of the blue and I was like, is this guy for real? He wants to interview me. But this was so awesome and yeah, such a cool opportunity for me. So it was lovely to meet you and lovely to have a chat.
No, I will definitely say this. I'm always looking for people to help me cover the W. So if you would all be interested during the W season, would love to have you on. Like I said, well, it's not a pressure situation. If you want to, I'm always looking for fun co-hosts who are passionate about the W experience when it comes to it. So I will throw out that invite there. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the end of this podcast. Again, keep an eye out, more supporter series and more fun chats like this, trying to find some fantastic females who are involved in football. We are going to get ourselves to March, get ourselves to the footy season when all of the fun of footy comes back. So that's going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals, and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.